McCabe is afraid of the corona. Governor Whitmer has a major loss. You know, Governor Whitmer of Michigan. Yeah, she has a major Supreme Court loss. We're going to get into it. Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren is indicted, and Harvey Weinstein is not out of the woods just yet. And if you hang around to the end, I have a really sweet, feel good story. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Daily Facts. All right, so the first story is McCabe. And this is from The Hill. McCabe will not appear at Senate hearings citing coronavirus concerns. Now, as you know, last week, James Comey was before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he was being asked a lot of different questions about the Russia investigation. Um, Lindsey Graham chairs that. And like I said last week, Comey isn't going to tell you anything. He's going to plead the fifth. And pleading the fifth doesn't just mean stating the words, I plead the fifth. It just means I'm not going to give you any information. Listen to what some of the things that he said.
Again, I don't agree with your preamble. I don't think the record established that he was working with the CIA.
Why is Mr. Kleinsmith facing criminal indictment?
I only know what I've read in the public record. I know nothing about Mr. Kleinsmith other than what I've read in the public record. I don't know specifically. I don't know the answer. I don't remember learning anything additional about Steele's sources. I don't know. I could speculate, but
Okay, so I suspect that Andrew McCabe will do similar. He'll do similar. So let's just look at this briefly. Former FBI Director Andrew McCabe said Saturday that he will not appear at a hearing in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee next week after two of its members tested positive for COVID-19. McCabe was set to testify in front of the Judiciary panel on Tuesday as part of its investigation into the origins of the FBI's Russia probe, but said he felt attending would be tantamount to putting his family at risk after Senators Mike Lee, a Republican of Utah, and Tom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, who sit on the committee, tested positive. Mr. McCabe was still prepared to testify voluntarily and in person on October 6th, as recently as the latter part of this past week. Okay, Mr. McCabe is willing, able, and eager to testify in person about Crossfire Hurricane at any time in the future when it is safe to do so, but he is not willing to put his family's health at risk. All right, so there you have it. He is claiming that, the corona, he's scared. Oh, Andy, I'm so sorry. Well, maybe next time, right? You're going to have to testify at some point. Again, you're not going to answer any of the questions. It's just you people don't answer anything. You hem and haw and you run out the clock, as they say. But at any rate, you will have to come forward at some point and testify. Just a matter of time. All right, as I said in the intro, Governor Whitmer has some Supreme Court issues. She's got some problems. So this CNN article reads, Michigan Supreme Court strikes down governor's emergency COVID powers. Now, before we get into this, let's just take a quick walk down memory lane and look at some of the things that this individual has done and some things that have been done to her, like lawsuits. Let's take a look. Okay, this was back in May of 2020. Congressman sues Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer over handling of coronavirus crisis. Representative Paul Mitchell says Whitmer's actions violate his constitutional rights. Let's read a little bit of this. Michigan Representative Paul Mitchell, Republican of Dryden, is suing Governor Gretchen Whitmer over her handling of the coronavirus crisis, saying her actions violate his constitutional rights.
That's why I filed it, because I believe that there's a balance. We can maintain public health. We can maintain the health of the general public, especially those that are high risk, while also opening back up our economy and our society.
Congressman Mitchell filed this federal lawsuit not as Paul Mitchell, member of Congress, but Paul Mitchell, Michigan citizen, and it seeks to define exactly what the governor's police powers are to continue executive orders without approval of the legislature.
Whitmer recently extended her state of emergency without the approval of Michigan legislators who have promised to retaliate legally. The state is under a stay-at-home order through May 15th. Okay, though Whitmer loosened restrictions on businesses such as landscaping, golf, and motorized boating, protesters have gathered at the Capitol demanding the state reopen more quickly. All right, so in the lawsuit, Mitchell claims Whitmer's initial orders were intended to flatten the curve and that the curve was flattened during the first week of April, according to the data. Okay, so let's walk on over to his actual lawsuit. We have receipts on this. Let's take a look. All right, so here you have it. Paul Mitchell III versus Gretchen Whitmer and Robert Gordon. Let's just take a quick look at this. Intro. On March 11, 2020, Governor Whitmer issued Executive Order 2020-04, which declared a state of emergency based upon two presumptive diagnoses of coronavirus disease. All right. The governor stated the initial orders were premised on the perceived emergency needed to flatten the curve so as to avoid overwhelming the state's hospitals. All right, let's keep going. There is no question that infectious diseases are unfortunately a part of everyday life. Some are more susceptible to certain illnesses than others, but Michiganders can and do take reasonable private action to protect themselves from infection without the need to shut down civil society. Mitchell seeks a judicial declaration that the executive orders and all other orders, rules, and enforcement activity related to them are unconstitutional under the guarantee clause. All right, so that's just a little bit of what's happening there in the lawsuit. And this was filed on May 4th of 2020. So just more of the same. Michigan State House and Senate sue Gretchen Whitmer over state of emergency extension. I mean, it's just on and on and on. Now, this article was on June 3rd, and it was updated on July 2nd. And it states this is from Local News 4. Here are all 140 executive orders issued by Michigan Governor Whitmer during the pandemic. Now, this was June 3rd, updated on July 2nd, and there were 140 executive orders issued by this individual. Now, that was months ago, and we still have more executive orders coming out. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But let's look at some of these orders that she submitted. Just out of curiosity, right? Declaration of state of emergency, that was issued on April 1st. Temporary prohibition on large assemblages and events, temporary school closures, that ended on April 16th. And this ended on April 1st. So this one was issued on March 10th and it ended on April 1st. And this one here, March 13th, it was issued, ended on the 16th. Let's just scroll down a little further and see what else temporary enhancements to operational capacity and efficiency of healthcare facilities. That was issued on March 17th and it ended on April 14th. Oh my goodness. I mean, just temporary restrictions on the use of places of public accommodation. That was issued on the 20th, ended on the 13th of April. Let's scroll down, way down. Okay, enhanced protections for residents and staff of long-term care facilities during the pandemic. That was issued May 20th, ended June 17th. I mean, she just likes to write executive orders, right? Protecting the food supply and migrant and seasonal agricultural workers from the effects of the pandemic. That was issued June 1st, ended on June 29th. Okay. Well, I mean, the list goes on and on because, well, there's 140. And we know she just issued one recently in September. Let's go look at that one. All right. Governor Whitmer signs executive order requiring face coverings for organized sports. Executive order requires face coverings if athlete cannot maintain 6-foot distance, excludes swimming. Oh my goodness. So this was issued September 10th of 2020. So she's still at it. She's still writing executive orders. I don't think that we need to even read this article. The title is self-explanatory. Okay, so all of that lands us right back here Michigan Supreme Court strikes down governor's emergency COVID powers. So let's look at some of this article. The Michigan Supreme Court ruled Friday that Governor Gretchen Whitmer had no authority to issue or renew executive orders relating to COVID-19 beyond April 30th. Wow. The Democratic governor extended the state's coronavirus emergency declaration by executive order April 30th after the Republican controlled legislature advanced a bill that would not have renewed the original declaration. Whitmer cited the Emergency Management Act of 1976 and the Emergency Powers of the Governor Act of 1945 as authority, with two lower courts subsequently dismissing legal challenges to her actions. But the Michigan Supreme Court Friday ruled that Governor Whitmer did not possess the authority under the EMA to redeclare a state of emergency or disaster based on the pandemic, and the EPGA was an unlawful delegation of legislative power to the executive branch in violation of the Michigan Constitution. Accordingly, the executive orders issued by the governor in response to the COVID-19 pandemic now lack any basis under Michigan law, the justice's opinion reads. Well, I think that she's going to have some problems after this. She's going to have some problems. Whitmer noted that the court's ruling would not take effect for at least 21 days and that her emergency declaration and orders would remain in place until then. Okay, well, we'll come back to this. We'll revisit this story. All right, this next story involves a politician being indicted for finance fraud. I know you're all shocked, but anyway, I thought this was interesting. So, Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren indicted in felony campaign finance fraud. Before we get into it, just a refresher. She was the mayor that came out about the Daniel Prude death. And she said there was deception and it was done purposely. So, there was a lot of hype and whatnot around that, and she was heavily involved in that. So let's go back to the indictment. Let's listen to a little bit of this before we get into the article.
We are here this afternoon to update the community on the conclusion of an investigation that has had much speculation over the years. We are here today to be transparent and upfront with the people of Monroe County. We are not here to conduct a trial in the media, and we are not here to comment on evidence. We are here to announce that earlier today, a Monroe County grand jury handed up an indictment against Lovely A. Warren, Albert Jones Jr., and Rosalind Brooks Harris. The indictment charges them with scheme to defraud in the first degree in violation of Penal Law Section 190-65, Subdivision 1B, which alleges that the defendants on or about and between November 6, 2013 and November 7, 2017 engaged in the scheme constituting a systematic ongoing course of conduct with intent to defraud more than one person or to obtain property from more than one person by false or fraudulent pretenses, representations, or promises, and so obtained property with a value in excess of $1,000 from one or more persons. That's the first count of the indictment. The second count alleges a violation of election law, Section 14-126, Subdivision 6, which alleges that the defendants during that same time period, while acting on behalf of a candidate or a political committee, knowingly and willfully solicited, organized, or coordinated the formation of activities of one or more unauthorized committees, made expenditures in connection with the nomination for election or election of any candidate, or solicited any person to make such expenditures for the purpose of evading the contribution limits set by law. Both of these charges are Class E felonies.
Okay, so there's there are a few charges in there and a few people that are involved. And I think that she pretty much summed it up. So, if convicted of the felony charges, she could be removed from office under state law. The maximum sentence would be 16 months to 4 years in prison, but Warren would be unlikely to be incarcerated. Her pension could be forfeited. However, if the matter is determined to be a crime related to public office, and she could also lose her law license. So there's a lot hinging on this. But now, as we always say, she's innocent until proven guilty. I mean, there's people. I think of Jeffrey Epstein, whose crimes were far more egregious, and instead of him actually sitting in prison, he was allowed to walk in and out of prison. I mean, the things that happened in that case are just they boggle the mind. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right, the Daily Mail has a piece out on Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein is charged with 6 more counts of sexual assault involving 2 victims who say he raped them at a Beverly Hills hotel more than a decade ago. Wow, let's read these bullets. Los Angeles District Attorney announced the 6 new charges on Friday. Weinstein had already faced charges involving 3 alleged victims in LA. New charges involve 2 women who say he raped them in a Beverly Hills hotel. Weinstein, 68, is already serving 23 years in prison in New York for sex crimes. If convicted in Los Angeles, he could face up to 140 additional years behind bars. Hey, what are you going to do? All right, well, I don't think we even need to read any of this story. Those bullets pretty much tell us everything that we need to know. Here, I just always found amusing. He suddenly became, I don't know, unable to walk without a walker. And so he wheeled himself into the courthouse towards the end. I think it was when he was being sentenced, maybe right before and during, trying to get a little sympathy. Oh, well, there you have it. Harvey Weinstein. More allegations. All right, this is, if you're a dog lover or just an animal lover, you're going to love this next story. This good boy just started training to become a police dog in Estonia, and people on the internet are already proud of him. The good boy that you can see in the photos below is a small and extremely adorable Belgian Shepherd named Sam. Turns out this little cutie has recently kicked off his training to become a police dog in Estonia. Okay, well, these are our friends in Europe. Apparently, Sam will be working in the northern uh, prefecture of the police special forces. We're absolutely sure no one with evil intentions will get away from this good boy. So there he is. There's another picture of little Sam. It's just a little guy. I think he's going to do amazingly. I think that has to be my absolute favorite. He's already strong. Look at him. He's a good boy. Here's some of what was being said on the internet. I'm not I'm not Estonian or even near Estonia. Yet I don't know about you guys, but I feel the world just got a little safer. I agree. In a world full of trouble, thanks for sharing something adorable. All right, I'll give up and surrender, but only because you're so gosh darn cute. Well, there you have it. There you have it. There's little Sam making Estonia safe. All right, well, thank you for stopping by the Daily Facts. Do like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. We'll talk again soon. Bye.